Welcome to the Cinema Condition with your host and filmmaker and creator of the Nerdcore Podcast Network, Raul Alejandro Mendoza. I am here to do our 10th episode with our wonderful guest, Mariana Rivera. They are an incredible person who helped me with one of my documentaries I'm working on, actually. And they also are a big cinephile. So Mariana's going to be here to talk to us about Issa Lopez's 2017 film, Tigers Are Not Afraid. And without further ado, I guess we got to introduce you all to the wonderful Mariana Rivera. Say hello.
Hello. Hi, everyone. You're giving me too much credit.
What are you talking about? I mean, he's a great friend, worked with me on my documentary, and cinephile. What else is there to say?
Okay, maybe fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
I'll take it. Thank you.
Most people who come on this show are cinephiles, you know? They come on the show because they want to talk something a little bit deeper to the movies.
Okay.
Yeah. We've reached double digits, guys. Double digits.
Woo!
1-0. The good 1-0. Last week was freaking awesome with Brad, my co-host, from the Nerdcore. We did Akira Kurosawa's 1952 film Ikiru, and it was a wonderful time. And we've had a lot of great movies. The first 10 movies are great, and I can't wait for you guys to take a look at the next 10 that we've got coming up. And I'm really, really excited, but I'm really, really happy that I have Mariana here because the movie that she chose is a movie I've never seen before.
Yeah. I was really glad. It was a treat, really.
How are you doing? How are you holding up with the quarantine?
You know, trying to keep busy as best as I can. I'm here in Texas alone, but it's probably best if I remain here. So I decided to just stay here in case the border closed. So if I go back and the border's closed, then there's no way for me to make my way back into the country. So it was just safer if I stayed here, plus better healthcare over here, I guess. Here, trying to keep busy, trying to make a schedule. How about you?
Oh, everything's going all right here. It's just, movies, video games, and eating. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Valid.
We have some problems going on with our productions at the moment, but, we'll get some word on how that's going to work out with classes going to be online. But for now, I mean, I just been a lot of podcasting going on, a lot of stuff, and we're finally be able to do this one because this is going to be really fun. I really can't wait to start talking about this. But a little bit more knowledge on Mariana. They are also a journalism major, I believe, right?
I am not actually.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah, I left journalism last semester to pursue my actual passion, which is Latino studies, and that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome. Now my head is just spinning about what film you're probably going to choose. Damn, yeah. They now do Latino studies, and that's something that I'm a huge interest in as well, as you can tell by the documentary we worked on. And that's actually, I'm going to be finishing that up soon. What's it called? You're always welcome to come on the, to come and shadow me as I get some B-roll left and I edit that thing because I'm going to be finishing up that documentary this summer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but Mariana did a wonderful interview for me for that documentary, and they were amazing in it. It was like, wow, like she was throwing something.
Oh my gosh, you're perceiving me.
They were awesome in it, man. They were awesome. And I can't wait to finish that project. And they chose Tigers Are Not Afraid, which is a film by Issa Lopez, and Issa Lopez is a Latina. And it's crazy, man. It's great. Like, this is a really good movie that they chose. Sad thing is, though, what's it called? It's not. This is the only time I'm going to bring up any sort of review stuff on this, because you obviously chose a really good film, and this is not the space to review a movie here. This is not for that at all. This is more deep analysis, more for analysis. I wish this movie would have been longer. I wish there was more to this movie. I wanted more. Out of it. That was my only complaint. But you chose a really good movie. So why'd you choose Tigers Are Not Afraid?
Honestly, I was just like, you know what? I did want to make. I wanted to watch a film made by like a Latino or like a Latina or
Mm-hmm.
just a Latinx in general, and then
Mm-hmm.
for like the cast to be predominantly, Latinx actors and actresses,
Mm-hmm.
or actress sex. I don't know how to say the like non-gendered word, but anyways, and I didn't want to watch a film that was just like, overly cheesy and,
Yeah.
like all those like sort of cheesy tropes of like Latinos when they're mainly written by, like white writers, where it's like, oh yeah, like my immigrant mom and like she's always like, I just wanted like a film that was just like, like it's just actors doing a thing and they just happen to be Latinx. You know what I mean?
For sure. You don't have to be calling out American Dirt like that, Mariana.
I came for Janine Cummings. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, they actually got a movie
Drag
deal.
her.
Yeah, they got a movie deal, so that's gonna get made. That's great. That.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, before the book even came out, they got a movie deal.
What?
Yeah. But enough of that. What's it called? We're here to talk about Issa Lopez's Tigers Are Not Afraid. And I want to introduce you all to the wonderful filmmaker that is Issa Lopez. She is a very, very interesting filmmaker because I read something here that really struck out to me. Obviously, we don't know her birthday because she's not that well known. But
I want to know her zodiac sign.
Yeah, well, Issa Laura Lopez was born in Mexico City, Mexico, in the F. And she was mostly started off as a writer. She directed her first short film, but she doesn't really start directing her films until Selected? No, Side Effects. I'm sorry, Side Effects. She's done a telenovela before, and she's done another film, but those were all written by her until Side Effects, when she does her directorial debut for her feature. But she had one film called Casi Divas, which was she wrote and directed it, that she wanted Hans Zimmer, the legendary Hans Zimmer, to compose the score for that film. And Hans Zimmer was so, affected by the film and the idea of the film. Wait until you hear this, Mariana. Hans Zimmer charged Issa Lopez $1 to compose the film.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
Yeah. Hans Zimmer wanted
Hans Zimmer.
Yep. Stan Hans Zimmer, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, this was charged $1 just to score the film. And obviously she does a couple of other stuff in her career with writing and directing another short film, but it doesn't reach prominence. She doesn't make a huge hit until 2017's Tigers Are Not Afraid, or Vuelven. And she wrote, directed, and executive produced that premiered at Austin, Texas at the Fantastic Fest. And she popped. I mean, she was getting praise from Guillermo del Toro so much that Guillermo del Toro is producing her next film with Searchlight Pictures. And she was named in 2005 one of the 50 most important Latinos in the U.S. So she is a prominent rising figure in the community, and especially when it comes to filmmaking. And she also got some big ups from Stephen King and Neil Gaiman as well. So yeah. This is a horror film, and it is about these. It's about our protagonist Estrella. Right. She's a little girl who who goes home, and she finds out her mother is not at home anymore. Doesn't know where she is, and she kind of joins up with this gang of little kids, this little posse of kids who are trying to fight another rival gang, who seem to have like connections to to like satanic cults and stuff. And Estrella has these 3 chalks that seem to grant her 3 wishes, and we go on from there to try to find the people responsible for Estrella's mom's disappearance. But also, you find along the way these kids start to form a relationship with each other, and they start to become friends. And this film is incredibly shot, incredibly composed. this is a great movie. There's a lot of stuff going on in this movie. And Mariana, you watched it last night,
I
and
did.
yeah, you're like, dude, wow, like this is something else. And I'm like, hold on, slow your roll.
It
Oh,
was
man.
something else.
Yeah, can you describe me that? What was that feeling about when you finally finished this film?
It was just like shock, and it was validating in the sense that I was like, yeah, this is actually a reality for a lot of children in Mexico. So it's interesting. It was interesting to me, the fact that it was written as a horror story and advertised as a horror story, because it just kind of goes to show that like this was a movie that was more or less social commentary, and how a lot of times social commentary horror movies are actually just social realities for so many people, you know. Well, and like the reality for these children is that it's a nightmare.
Yeah. We were talking on the Nerdcore because we're doing Hayao Miyazaki month right now, and
that's so awesome.
Yeah, Miyazaki's films are really poignant with a lot of themes of anti-war, and I was describing how usually the Western world and the Eastern world have very different approaches to filmmaking in general, but there's a different approach when it comes to the to social commentary, especially in Latin America. Latin America's social commentary doesn't seem to be as loud in film,
right,
as what's it called, as the U.S. One of my biggest examples I go back to is Y Tu Mamá También, with Alfonso Cuarón's masterpiece, where Alfonso really captures the poverty and the what's it called, the imbalances of class in Mexico in that film.
Right.
And it's just a backdrop. It's so subtle. It's things that you're picking up, you know, from here to there, from here to there. It's not like being shouted at you from the film like in the U.S. And some filmmakers do know how to have that subtle commentary in there, which is really well made. But usually in the U.S., when you have social commentary in their films, they're not as subtle as a Tigers Are Not Afraid or an Y Tu Mamá También or a House Moving Castle.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I believe personally that has a lot to do with the amount of censorship in Mexico. Mexico is like one of the most dangerous places to be a journalist, or just like anybody that's doing anything in the media. I think like the only two other more dangerous were like Iran and like Syria or something. And so there's a lot of censorship, and it's not a good idea to be very bold as far as media in Mexico. So that's why I believe a lot of the subtlety comes from. But like when you're, you know, Alfonso Cuarón, where like you have all this money and you are a privileged like cis het man, you know, it's a little bit easier to be bold. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's why also, you know, what's it called? When Alejandro does it, I think Alejandro does it a little bit more, a lot more subtly too, because what's it called? Alejandro's brown. Alejandro's brown as hell. Yeah. Whereas, you know, Alfonso's more of a white passing man, and it's really interesting. Right. But you know, a lot of it has to do with censorship, but a lot of it also has to do with the the approach to filmmaking. Because in Eastern, and you know, in Japan and in China, you know, those approaches to filmmaking are very different. Even in Korea, a lot of those incredible South Korean films, they have a lot of criticisms for the government, are very subtle. Also in Russia with filmmakers such as Andrei Tarkovsky, you know, very very subtle as well. But this film is very it's very subtle as well with the commentary, but it's beautiful that it's woven into the horror genre, because you don't see a lot of social commentary in horror films. We started to see it because of the wonderful Jordan Peele with Get Out, and now Us, and you're now starting to see it. And in this film, it was really fresh to see it from not just a Latino, but you know, from a woman's eye. Right.
I think I like what you said about, you know, social commentary being a lot more bold now, because that is, it's a lot more bold. It's a lot more obvious. I really like the horror genre, especially in literature, because I don't know if I mentioned this, but my other major is English as well. So I love horror genre in literature because it tells us a lot about, you know, society's projection of their society's anxieties onto like othered bodies, such as, you know, racial bodies, such as disabled bodies, such as gendered bodies. And
Yeah.
so now it's become a lot more obvious, these anxieties, but it's always been there, you know?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. We really talked about it. We talked a lot about those anxieties with this is a throwback to episode number 3 with Leah Burns. We did Takashi Miike's audition, and that one's on Shudder as well. And that is there's a lot of stuff going on in there. There's a lot of castration anxiety, Freudian psychoanalytic filmmaking as well going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in that movie. And in this one, you there's not really a castration anxiety, but really, a lot of anxiety where, these girls are, because the men are obviously, the boys are being treated differently than the girls. The boys are, are being kept around. The girls are being brutally murdered.
Right.
And it shows that even though these kids are hanging around and they're obviously friends, and they learn to be friends, there's a big difference in the way that they're being treated by the gang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a huge commentary too on just like the whole issue, the very, very like endemic issue of femicide in Mexico as well as Latin America. I'm thinking of the specific moment where the girl Estrella is talking to Shine, or is it Shine?
Shine.
Shine.
But that
they always said Shine.
That name was such an anime character name. I swear. Yeah.
Yeah. And Shine tells Estrella, the men, like, they just like beat them up or something like that. But the women, they just absolutely disappear them.
Disappear them, cut them into pieces. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like where the men, they're probably just like, trafficked and like human trafficking and like sex trafficking. Yeah. But the women, they're just like, that's what he literally said, they're cut into pieces and they eat them literally.
Yeah. So
it's like it was a very subtle commentary on like femicide and just like gendered bodies in Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, very, very relevant today, especially as what we're seeing right now going down in Mexico. And it was really, really, I think that, God, I wonder if Isa Lopez was like, I feel like this is going to get worse and things are going to get even bigger. And I think my film's about to become even more relevant in 2020 when this is out now on a major streaming platform like Shudder. It's incredible, man. There's stuff going on. There's a lot of themes going on in here. Of course, the one that you can see the most is obviously the value of friendship, but there's a lot of stuff going on in here. There's those anxieties, right? Of gendered bodies. Just the absolute the war on drugs. Really, the failed war on drugs, and I believe this one takes place this has to be 2006, right?
I believe so. I mean, well, I remember like the phones, the iPhone that the guy had was like the Huasca was probably like an iPhone 5-ish, iPhone 6-ish.
Because from
2010, 2011.
Yeah. Because the height of the war in Mexico, the
war on drugs.
The war on drugs, the height seems to be around 2006 to 2000.
Right.
14, 13, around there.
Yeah, this was... The height of it was during Calderon's presidency, and that's when there's a lot of movement happening, a lot of grassroots movement happening about like, hey, actually, you're like kind of arresting and killing all these people that are not even like cartel members, especially in Ciudad Juarez. Ciudad Juarez was a focal point for that. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure, I believe it is during that time. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to, man. Yeah. And you also have an interest in the themes of poverty, class, and those are some of the themes in there. And I want to talk a little bit about these kids. These kids are very like, even though Shine. God, it's terrible.
It's like Haina, but like Shine.
Haina. Oh, my Haina.
Oh, God. I recently learned that word, and I'm like, why?
That's more of a California thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Haina is more of a California thing. But China, you know, he has a very hard exterior. Obviously, he's the leader of the group. But
Right.
he you know, he wants to be the tiger, you know, but China is a really interesting character because he's a very hard exterior, but he's also very mushy inside. It seems like he really does value the friendship that he gets with Estrella and the rest of the kids, especially Moro. He really cares for Moro. Yeah. And you know, these kids are kind of, it's an interesting, because you know, any other fan of horror would look at this and it's like, oh, it's like the It Kids, right? These are like the It Kids. It's very interesting. I feel like this relationship is better than the It Kids. I think that this is this, because those kids are only bound by fear. And I think these kids, some
You're gonna hate me, but I haven't seen.
It's okay. It's okay. These kids are bound by a lot of other things. You know, they're bound by fear, but they're also bound by anger, by sadness, by class struggles. What's it called? And obviously, what's it called? They share a common enemy, the Huescas.
Right. Yeah. I think it's in queer studies, there's like this term called found family, which is sort of like where you find your family when, you know, your own family, you know, turns you out on the streets for being gay, for being queer, for being trans. It's, you know, all that. And so this is kind of like, it felt a lot like that. Obviously, well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they might grow up and they might be queer. Who knows? That's never explicitly said, so we'll never know. But it was kind of interesting to see sort of like that found family happening with them.
Yeah.
You know, they're bound by these like how very terrible events can, you know, unify people, and like especially kids. You know what I mean? Like they didn't. I was like kind of like, in a realistic world, why didn't they go to like a social worker and be like, hey, my mom's not here? Like, or like a social worker didn't go check on like the house, like, and then like it also like sounded a lot like it was a very tightly knit community. So like if someone dies, then everybody knows about it, or they know whose like mom died, whose dad died. You know what I mean? So just I was like, why then did no adult help here? And I guess that was like a larger commentary on like how there is just no infrastructure at all in Mexico for, you know, helping children. Lots of like stories of like abuse, lots of stories of neglect, et cetera, et cetera. And so really you just have to rely on like other kids and their kids, you know, they're being forced to grow up.
Yeah, there's a scene in this film that really struck to me. You know, Moro and the other kids, well, no, there was the other kids, except for Shaina and what's it called? And Estrella. They go to the police and they show them the video. The police officer, the video. And the police is like, you know, he's scared, but he's like, I can't do anything, you know, like, in an extent, the police doesn't give a shit.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, most cops in Mexico are just either like too scared to do anything about it for several reasons. Either like their bosses probably work for and alongside these like gangs and cartels, or they themselves are on their payroll. So like can't really go against the boss, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. So these kids are really forced to, you know, confront the what's it called, the problem themselves. And, you know, that's why you see a lot of you see a lot of rival gangs, and you see a lot of you know, militias and stuff that, you know, rise up to go against the main enemy there. And it shows with these kids. These kids are like, you know, we all share a common experience. And excuse me, don't want to burp into the microphone. We all share a common experience, and we all have to band together because we've all lost something. You know, Moro doesn't speak because something happened to him. You know, they killed my parents. What's it called? They killed China's parents, if I believe. Estrella's parents are mom is missing. You know, every one of them has lost something, and they're all kind of bound together by loss and by being stripped of something by this common enemy.
Yeah. It's also like a loss of just like innocence in childhood. Do you know what I mean? Because in the very opening scene of the movie, when there's like a shooting happening right outside of the school, you know, they all get down. And then the teacher gets down, and the teacher's panicking, like the teacher's freaking out, you know, and it's like trying to comfort everyone else. But the teacher seemed a lot more freaked out than the kids did. And Estrella's just completely calm. And she walks outside and she literally sees like a dead body outside, you know, and no reaction, no know nothing. And these kids are like, you know, oh yeah, let's go kill the Huascas. Like if you want to join our, China tells Estrella, if you want to join our gang, then you have to go kill Caco.
Caco,
you know? Yeah. And so it's like, how are you so desensitized? Like you're just asking this other kid to go kill someone, and it's a kid. So it's loss of just you know, family. It's loss of family members, and it's also loss. They've all lost this sort of innocence. They've lost a childhood because they'll never be able to get that back. They'll never be able to like just be kids again.
Yeah, for sure. There also seems to be a suppression of trauma. And that's something that it's really interesting when you take a look at these films. I think it's something interesting because horror is a very interesting genre where you can kind of speak on trauma. It's very beautiful to see it done with dramas, right? And you know, we've seen some films who absolutely do an incredible job at talking on trauma. But there's this very, very interesting way that horror does, and we started seeing it as of late with a lot of American filmmakers. But you know, a lot of filmmakers from the past have been doing this, and there's been a lot of big commentary on trauma in horror. And I gotta say, in here, there's a big suppression of it. You know, these kids who grow up with probably do have PTSD, and you have these kids who are suppressing these things. But you know, it's the Estrella cries in this film, but the little boys rarely cry. The little boys rarely cry. A lot of that has to do with masculinity, of course, right? You know, the idea of masculinity, but it also is all the suppression of trauma and all these things that these kids have been seeing has been bottled up and been stored deep inside to make sure it doesn't get brought up, because an internal fear that, you know, maybe the group is going to break apart if we all start to, you know, bring up the things that have happened to us. Maybe that's why Moto doesn't speak on it, because doesn't really want to worry the rest of the team.
Right. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. And I know there's this one very specific example that I'm thinking of and it's present throughout the whole film. And it's interesting that this film starts with death and also ends with death. And right after the first dead body, or I don't know, maybe Estrella's probably seen many more dead bodies other than the one that she saw when she stepped outside of her school.
Yeah.
But if you notice, like that little red line of blood that followed her out, and then it's just literally following her everywhere she goes. It follows her, and it kind of just shows her that her mom is dead when it like splatters itself all over her mom's dress. And then China, before what happens to China, like the red line of blood just follows him, and as she's escaping from Caco as well, it's just following her. And so she's always escaping it. It's not until the very end that we kind of see Estrella letting it follow her, this stream of blood, and she's actually following it at the end and letting it lead her. So it's like all this trauma is, you know, following her and following these children, but it's just they're avoiding it. As well as like just like all of the bodies. Another thing would be the bodies that show up throughout the movie. Is at first we just see little like snippets, little shadows of like these traumatized bodies, such as Estrella's mom's corpse, and then all the corpses at the end. You know, it was very jarring to see, you know, and it kind of just shows because those bodies had a lot of trauma happen to them, right, on a physical level, but the labor of, you know, patriarchy, because that's what this really is here, these like toxic masculinity. I mean, that's not all it is. It's a lot more. It's a class commentary, but the labor of patriarchy and the labor of these kinds of gangs, you know, is like not just trauma on bodies physically, but the what's beneath the skin, you know.
Yeah.
Trauma is happening on the inside, trauma happening to their souls, their hearts, their everything.
Yeah. And I mean, what's it called? And also, it's interesting that they keep, you know, they keep the boys around to groom them to become them, so that way they can have more members. But in the same way, you're robbing the children of these experiences, of their own childhood, and you're kind of, you know, molding them, and you're not only suppressing that trauma, but you're kind of like, okay, explore what's it called? Express that in anger, express that in more violence and in more sacrificial stuff, like in the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, especially when China just tells Estrella, go kill him, and you can be one of us. It's like, what the hell? Why is this child like asking this other child to go kill someone?
Yeah.
And even if like because China wants them all dead,
Yeah.
but he's still like asking the child to do this like really inhumane thing. Like that's even like obviously not morally responsible for for an adult to do, let alone a child.
Yeah.
But you still see sort of like this sort of uncomfortable. He's not comfortable with it as well, just because in the beginning when he tried to kill Gakko, he couldn't.
Yeah.
And he almost tried to again when they were escaping, and he still couldn't.
Yeah.
And so he had to go have Estrella do it for him, who actually didn't even do it herself.
Mm-hmm.
She used one of her wishes to have him killed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like this unwillingness to I like it because it didn't like make these kids, these like super desensitized things, because like even though they've already been very desensitized, they're still kids.
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily going to be okay and like with killing. They're not going to be these cold-blooded killers.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can avoid killing someone, then they will.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just shows that, there's a desensitization.
I can't even say that word.
I can't. I'm sorry. There's that.
We get the gist.
We get the gist, right? There's that, but it's not really fully desensitized, right? They're not. There's still a level of what's it called, a conscious in there. Still able to make a decision, because there's a lot of complexities to taking a life there. It's not an easy.
Right.
It's not an easy choice to do, and we talked about that on what's it called, on that Miyazaki review we did for Howl's Moving Castle. I talk about there's a big complexity to taking a life and pulling that trigger. It's not a simple decision you can make, and I don't care what how much of a macho man you think you are. Like, oh yeah, coming into my house and fucking shoot him. Yeah, no, there's a level of complexity that goes with that, and it's very accurately explored in this movie.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, what's it called? I've got to go ahead and we'll be heading into our what's it called? Into our commercial break in a bit. But what's it called? I just got to let you guys let you guys know about something wonderful here. I don't know if we're allowed
an
to. announcement.
Word.
Yeah, an announcement. Well, actually, an ad, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do it on here. So I'm just going to put it on here, hoping that I'm allowed to do this. But if I'm not, then I'm sorry. For you, the listeners of the Cinema Condition podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a 30-day free trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. I personally recommend you guys go and get The Hobbit Unabridged by J.R.R. Tolkien, or Crush It, Why Now is the Time to Cash In on Your Passion by Gary Vaynerchuk. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/thenerdcore. Again, that's audibletrial.com/thenerdcore for your free audiobook today. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do that. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to, but I'm gonna go ahead and get it in. But yeah, let's just one more. Just talk just a little bit before we go ahead and get into this commercial break. It's interesting that the war on drugs is the background for this.
Right.
And God, you have no idea how much I appreciate it, because this is what happens when you bring a Latino into your film. When you have a whole team full of Latinos in your film, this is the interesting part. You don't get that damn look of Mexico that you always get in American films. Like
the orange and green color palette.
Yeah, the oversaturated palette. The colors are very grim in this, but they're also very beautifully worked. The colorists did a really good job on this film, and you have no idea how much I appreciated that. And because, contrary to popular belief, there's a lot of beauty in this country, Mexico. A whole lot of fucking beauty in this country. But sadly, films have not really shown that beauty. And there's some of these shots in this film that are gorgeous, just gorgeous to look at.
Yeah. I actually really appreciate that too. But I knew that that's what I was getting myself into because it was made by like a Latina writer and director. And I also kind of really appreciated, how a lot of like the action happens in, as well as like the paranormal things that Estrella sees happen in the daylight, because we think of night as this like, that's when, it's the witching hour.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's where everything bad happens and like nothing good happens in the day. I mean, everything's fine in the day, but it just shows that, this is a reality for a lot of people, because like they're not gonna like, it's not gonna be where like a switch that they could get to turn off, when it's daytime. No, like the running from gangs, or like always being afraid for their lives, having to survive on like ramen noodles, and just being homeless. That's a reality for everyone. It's not something they can just like turn on and off like a light switch.
Yep.
So I really appreciated that.
Yep. And I like that. You still get that idea that these are still kids. They're like, oh, we want a house with a zoo inside. What's it called? A goalpost to play soccer in. And we want it to have this and that. And it's like, there's still that childlike innocence and that childlike wonder. That shows that these kids aren't really off the rim yet. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're not just only interacting with people of their own ethnic community, but they're also interacting with people who have the shared same experience in them.
Right. I think also just because this was set in Mexico, it's not like there's like this sort of, I mean, there are minorities and majorities, right? You have like the more like white Mexicans and the more, brown and black Mexicans as well. But that's not, I guess, sort of like, the term Mexican is a minority in the US, but here it's not. It's like everyone's just like,
yeah.
That's a whole different conversation, actually. We'll have it later.
for a different movie, probably, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Race and class. We'll talk about that later.
Ooh, that's a different movie. That's for a different movie. Yeah. But yeah, I really, really, I think that's such a prominent thing. And it's just, once again, it's, what's it called? How we tackle trauma, we usually are able to tackle it in groups. And when we find those people who have those shared experiences as us and who are able to understand us on a deeper level than most people who can just, say like, oh, okay, man, that really sucks. Like there's people out there who understand what we've gone through on a deeper level, and it really builds that sense of community, and you feel it with those kids, and you really do feel it with them.
Yeah, strength in numbers. When times are tough, like that's what is, I mean, especially since now we're in this, that's why I'm kind of having a hard time in during this stressful time, because I love building community. I really love it. I love, being able to just like vent to like someone who has like experienced a lot of things that I have, and not just like, vent to someone and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like that must really suck, And it's like, no, I want you to like vent with me. I want you to like, scream and like cry and like, do all these things with me. I want you to like be just as like equally upset because you understand, because you've gone through that. So, and that's why I'm upset at this. I'm like, fuck, like, like now is the time to grow stronger as a community during this whole, global pandemic. And that's literally the one thing we can't do.
Yeah.
Is be around other people.
But something that the film also reminds me of is that we can't expect everybody to act the same way, though, because even Estrella really is still holding on to hope that her mom is still alive and she's missing, and that what's it called, that these kids are, what's it called, that there's more to these kids, and Shiny on another end is like, no, she's dead, you should just get over it and move on as much as we can, so that way we can just defeat these assholes. And I think it's just a reminder that, like, a lot of us are very different. Even though we can't all cry together, there's still something that can unite us, and that's our experiences.
Yeah, everyone experiences trauma differently. Everyone sort of processes it differently. Also, a sidebar, shout out to these kids and these like actors and actresses. Oh my God. Like they were so good, and they're kids. You know, they couldn't have been more older than like 10. They couldn't have. There's just no way. So just like props to them for like being able to like handle this like really difficult material.
Yeah.
And, you know, deliver so well. Wow. I was just really amazed, you know. It wasn't none of those like cringy like Disney like actors like I'm them, you know.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we're gonna go ahead and keep continuing our conversation on Tigers Are Not Afraid. But in the meantime, we've got some commercials you guys need to listen to. All right, we'll be back, guys. Hey, I'm Raul Leandro Mendoza, and this is
Jabril Newton.
And we are the hosts of High Flyer Radio. And finally, pro wrestling has come back to the Nerdcore podcast feed in the form of a show hosted by Jabril and I. And we talk about everything and anything in the pro wrestling world on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Nothing's off limits. Whatever you guys want to talk about, if it's from AEW to SmackDown to Raw to NXT, nothing's off the table. We can talk about it. We're going to talk all about it. And if you can get it a day early, you should go to the www.patreon.com/thenerdcore and pledge to the tiers on there so you can get this show and a lot of shows days early before anybody else gets to hear it. But enough talking about it. We'll go ahead and see you there at the Squared Circle. Oh, yeah. Don't tap out. Tune in.
Hey, it's Ashley from the Gamer Core. You may remember me from such episodes as Big Screen Mess, Mo Money Mo Platforms, and Brad Can Read. Tune in weekly as I blab with my co-hosts Raul the Nerdy Chicano and Brad the Random Germ about the latest news in gaming and gush over what we're playing at the moment. Oh yeah, and we got the deals too. Keep up with the latest deals in gaming and what's happening as I mediate Brad and Raul fighting like a married couple. Will Death Stranding ever come out? Will Cyberpunk 2077 live up to the hype? Is a next-gen worth a $500 console price tag? And has there ever been a movie adaptation of a video game that's been done right? It's all on the Gamer Core podcast, everywhere where podcasts are.
Hey everyone, my name is Raul, the Nerdy Chicano, and I am the host of The Impaired Files. The Impaired Files is an interview show brought to you every Thursday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. And I interview people such as filmmakers, content creators on YouTube, and podcasters like Colton Geschwander. And if you want to listen to that early, a whole week early, all you got to do is go to the Patreon and pledge to the $1 tier. And if you want to listen to it with the general public, then go to the Nerdcore podcast feed on anchor.fm/thenerdcore. And the case is closed, but it's not classified. See you guys there.
Hey guys, this is Brad, aka Young Yoda. Raul said I had to make an ad, so that's what I'm doing. It's supposed to be for Unstructured, but as you guys know, you can freaking catch me everywhere when it comes to this podcast feed. You can find me on the Nerd Cores, on Gamer Cores, on Nerdy Chicanos sometimes when I get lost. But for this particular one, I want you guys to go check out Unstructured. The Raul gave me free reign to do whatever I want to do. I don't know what he was thinking. So go hear me talk about LeBron James and Taco Tuesday, vaping, so many other freaking weird topics that chimichangas, that's a good one. Shout out to Deadpool. And yeah, I guess this is the end of the ad. So if you guys want to find me, you can find me all over the place on this podcast feed. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. And nerd up.
Hello, 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 guys and gals, and you're listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore. I am your host, Daniela Nunez, and along with my amazing co-host, Ashley Garcia, we discuss many things like social impact, pop culture, political realms, and any controversy surrounding the Nerdverse. Tune in and listen to us bi-weekly on the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we will love to chat and hear your thoughts on our wonderful show. And thank you again for listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore.
What's up, everybody? It is me, Raul, and I'm one of the hosts of the Nerdy Chicano Show. The Nerdy Chicano Show is a comedic show brought to you by Luis and myself, and it comes to you all every Sunday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. You can catch it a day early by becoming a Patreon and supporting us at the $1 tier. And I don't really know how to explain this show other than it's fun. We get to talk about whatever we want, and it helps you move on in the week. So if you want to catch the Nerdy Chicano Show every Sunday at 8 a.m. All you got to do is go to anchor.fm/thenerdcore, and we'll see you there, baby. Hey everyone, I'm Raul.
And I'm Brad.
And we're the hosts of the Nerdcore Podcast, the podcast that talks that nerd. Not on this ad, right? And we come to you every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. On the Mondays, we talk the news. That's the box office, the news of the week, and your trailer talk, if there is any. And on Tuesday, we have our theme review. And on Saturday, you have a Saturday morning review, usually movies that have come out in the week or anything we want to talk about. Right, Brett?
Exactly. Whatever we want to talk about, this is our show. If you don't like it, then you don't have to listen.
We're the flagship show, the Nerdcore Podcast feed, and we can be found everywhere you can listen to podcasts like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. So if you want to talk that nerd stuff with us every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, make sure you tune in. And Brad?
Young Yoda out.
We're back with our conversation on Tigers Are Not Afraid from Ride Director Isa Lopez with Mariana Rivera. Thank you guys for listening to those wonderful commercials, and as always, you know, it really helps if you guys go listen to the other shows on the network, and also going to the Apple Podcast feed here to leave us a rating and review. It really does help us out. It really helps how people can find the show easier. But we're back and we're talking about this wonderful movie. When we left off, we were really talking about, you know, the shared experience of the kids, and I want to go ahead and finish this conversation by really having a pretty interesting conversation on, you know, a horror movie being set during an actual horrific event for a country. You know, we really do have it in the background of the war on drugs, which, you know, saw the murder of innocent people, but also, you know, the murder of the kidnapping of kids, the murder of kids. And it's really, really interesting that Isa Lopez chooses to do a paranormal horror film in the background of the war on drugs in Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, it's a social reality for everyone, you know? And so it just kind of shows how, like, for some people, for some groups in the country, this is like a nightmare. But for others, especially these kids, this is like their reality, you know?
Yep, for sure. I'm sorry. I'm getting something right here, man. But
you're good.
Yeah. Wonderful filmmaker life, right? Filmmaker life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the reality for a lot of these kids, and it's, you know, we've seen this before being done. Like, you know, Guillermo del Toro did it with well, you know, not the same thing, right? But, you know, bringing in like tragedy into the background of a film. You know, Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth is based inside of the Spanish Civil War. You really don't, you never see it be done with Latin America, though. You know, it's always really interesting, you know, with the Europeans, but you never see it done with Latin America. That's why I would love, you know, to get my hands on a script for the interventions that were done in Latin America during the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and a little bit of the 90s too, and really make a horror film from there, especially with the whole Contra armies. But yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, God, I would love to get my hands on that type of script. Now, I mean, I could write it too, but, you know, just getting my hands on that would be interesting. But it's really well thought out in here. When you really bring it in as the background, it really does kind of put you on edge. I mean, for Latinos in general, this whole topic puts us on edge, you know.
Right.
And from the beginning of the film, when I knew that what we were getting ourselves into, when that first shootout happens, I'm on edge the whole time. Like, you know, it's a different type of fear. I think that this is what's coming out of this, you know, horror renaissance as of late in the industry. You know, you're starting to see not an over reliance on, you know, the slasher or the over gory stuff. The horror comes from the background of the film. You know, that's why that's why I love films like The Witch, because the horror isn't really what's going down. It's the fact that a family is able to turn on each other this quick because they feel that their daughter's a witch.
Yeah, I think the film. So, are you familiar with Julia Kristeva?
No.
Okay, so Julia Kristeva is a very wonderful feminist French writer. Back in the 60s, she I can't say that she coined it, but she popularized the word objection.
Oh, yes. Wait, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I was talking about, how, like, this is a labor of, like, you know, settler capitalist patriarchy, which is, like, going beneath trauma on bodies, like, just and then going beneath that, and then just sort of what's underneath, and that would be objection. You know what I mean? The reason why we find it so creepy, or like not so creepy, but it's so horrifying to watch, and it feels so real and like tangible, is because of the familiarity, you know? And so like, you know how Kristeva's whole objection is, should I explain it?
Yeah, explain. So Leia brought it up during our talk on audition for Takashi Miike, because the whole abject in another one of Takashi Miike's films is a very severed woman's body in a pool, in a little pool of blood, shit, and piss.
Right, and that's what makes it so horrifying, because objection is, you know, this sort of in a settler capitalist patriarchy. You know, there's this sort of succinct subject-object relationship between everything, you know. A woman is the subject of a man, and as well as her object, you know. We're all subjects under patriarchy, and women are objects underneath it. But what happens when you're neither? That's when you usher in the abject, you know. And so that's a good example of it, the corpse, because that's a number one example everyone points to, you know, because like a corpse and zombies too, they used to be subjects and they're not anymore. And they used to be objects as well to like, you know, control, and they're not anymore. So then what are you? You're kind of like in between being something and nothing, but both at the same time. And that's how objection happens, you know, and it's just sort of like you feel this sense of horror, because it's like, oh my God, this person used to be like me. Like that's going to be me if like I get bit by a zombie, or like if I die, like this is what I'm going to look like. I'm going to be, you know, stateless in a sense. And that's that familiarity that makes it really horrifying. And that's why it makes like this sort of war on drugs theme that's recurring throughout the whole movie more horrifying, because it's like that's the familiarity that we all feel with it, and so we all feel that objection.
Yeah, it always reminds. There's always a remind, because you know there are other films have, you know, at least American produced films have, you know, they really, you know, amplified the violence. In this film, the violence isn't really amplified. It's really like, you know, it's, I wouldn't say it's subtle, because it sure as hell ain't subtle. But, you know, it's not as gory as it is if this would have been made through the eyes of an American director, or, you know, a white director. But, you know, what's it called? There's those little hints in there where it's like, you know, it feels like it's very much familiar. It reminds me of those videos of, you know, the crying mothers from like 2006-ish, and where they're, you know, asking like, you know, what is the government going to do to help our kids, you know, to make sure our kids don't keep dying. And, you know, it's to me, it also opens up, you know, but well, not in my case, right? But I mean, if I were to put myself in the shoes of somebody else, it opens up opening trauma back from that, and also having to confront that trauma. You know, a lot of us grew up in different neighborhoods. Mine especially, I grew up in a very different neighborhood where I went to bed to gunshots every night. You know, but a lot of people, you know, that horror comes from that familiarity, like you're speaking on.
Yeah, I also really like that you mentioned how Western, like an American, is made by like a, you know, like a white, you know, American. Yeah. This would be a lot more like gory and stuff. And that just sort of like, I like how there's this newer movement just in film in general, and just in media in general, where people are like fighting back against like, you know, seeing all these like all this trauma in like a very physical and a very desensitizing way. Like, for example, I'm thinking of back a couple, like almost a little bit over a month ago, or less than a month ago, actually, when that newspaper in Mexico, like this woman was tortured by her husband and then killed in a very grotesque manner, very, very grotesque manner. And they published the images of what had happened to her. And it was a front cover of the paper. And then it was like, wait a minute, you're desensitizing everyone. Like there's already so much like trauma happening. And like, that's trauma porn. It's literally trauma porn, you know? And so like Americans like doing that because like essentially they like subjecting brown and black bodies, and they like fetishizing those bodies. And so this is like, seeing that is like porn to them. And that's like an actual like term, you know, in media studies, as well as in just women and gender studies, trauma
Mhm.
porn, like you get off from like watching all this like trauma happen to these like other bodies,
Yeah.
you know?
And it really starts to cloud the way that filmmakers make their work. And it's like, oh, is the only way to actually portray this subject is by, kind of pandering to that trauma porn. And it's
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, no, you actually don't need to do all of that to get your point across,
No.
And if you think that you do, then you're actually you're not trying to get any point across. You just want to see, trauma happen to other bodies.
Yeah. What is the word I like to say to you all? And it's probably, what's it called? I've asked Mariana for my help on a script that I wrote already. I just need to send it out to her. Consultants. Okay?
Yeah.
You get people to
exactly.
help you out. You get,
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong. I've got about 2 consultants on this project I'm trying to do. And I've sent it to one consultant already and they liked what they read. And what's it called? I got to send it to Mariana next, but yeah, that's just me being lazy. But yeah, consultants. That's what we need. That's what you need with your work. It's there's nothing wrong with asking for an extra hand. You as the writer aren't the only one who's going to be interpreting the subject, especially if you're a writer who's setting your script down. You're not going to be directing it. There just needs to be somebody there to kind of consult and check on how you're going to be creating your work. And sadly, it's something that it happens a lot in America, where it's like, oh, we'll just make it like this. I have the right to tell whatever story I want to tell. It's like, it's not as easy as that. Maybe that would have flown over in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like, yeah, like we could have gotten that down. But where we're at right now, I think that there has to be a level of authenticity to it. Like, it's not to say that you as a white director aren't allowed to tell a story that you want to tell. It's just that there needs to be a way you approach it so it can have some level of authenticity to it. One of the main examples I look towards is that we talked about on this podcast, Tangerine from Sean Baker. Incredible story. If you would have told me that was made by a white man, I would have told you that's dumb. I thought that would have been made by a trans brown woman or a black woman. Like that movie's incredible, and it's crazy how authentic it is. And I'm pretty sure that Sean Baker had consultants helping him out with that script, and that there's that level of authenticity that comes with it. And that's what this film shows. When you get somebody in back of that camera who understands the community, who has lived through that time, and who is also she's been working since 1994. She's helmed her craft, and you get a level of just that pure raw authenticity to it.
Right. And that's literally just ethics.
Exactly.
And for lack of a better word, common sense.
Yep. Not being an
if that wasn't your experience, like lived, because like, identities aren't just like identities. It's not just like the color of your skin. It's not, just like where you grew up. It's not just the color of your skin. It's not just where you grew up. It's not like just your sexuality. It's like, it's a lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just common sense to have someone that's had those experiences just be a consultant, and then also like it's just a very fine line to walk on if you don't. It's a very slippery slope to walk on if you don't, because it's very easy if you don't have consultants or like that wasn't your experience, to just fall into this language of stereotypes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And trauma porn. So
Yep.
You don't want to do that. You don't want to get that reputation, and that's the end. Like cough, Janine Cummins. You don't want to get that reputation.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's still mind-boggling that it's been it was 2007, so it's been 13 years since we had a Latina direct a major Hollywood film, and I'm hoping that happens with the film that Memo is producing for Issa Lopez, because Issa Lopez has shown in this film that there's a lot of skill with her. And there's a lot more stuff coming for. I think we barely even touched the surface of what Issa Lopez is able to make in this film. And I think that this film was incredible. It made me want more. It's how I felt about Atlantique from Mia Yop. I can't remember her name. African filmmaker. She did an incredible job on that film. I just wanted more. I wanted more. And we just started touching on the
Give
surface.
me that ethics. Yes. Give me those ethics.
Yeah, man. It was like, if only it wasn't this short. Like, if only the story wasn't this fast. Like I just wanted to spend a little bit more time with these characters, get to know them a little bit more. But what you're reminded, this is just the beginning of these people's career, and we're gonna see a great resurgence of that soon. And I'm really excited for what Issa Lopez does. So now, anything else you want to get into before we get into the hot seat, Mariana?
Wait, what do you?
Anything else?
Like,
you want to?
Anything else I want to get in?
No, anything else you want to bring up about this film before we go ahead and get to the end here?
I feel like we brought up everything. Oh, actually, no, we haven't. No. The biggest thing, the Tigers.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the title of the movie.
Tigers are not afraid.
I don't really. Well, I mean, I never have any thoughts. My head is empty. There's only like a clown honk up in there. But I just really, I didn't really know what to make of, like, I'm still kind of thinking, I'm like, why tigers? Why are tigers not afraid? Why tigers? Why choose tigers? And I kind of don't, I'm still kind of working through it slowly, what I think, why tigers and what does it mean? But I wanted to know more what you think.
I think tigers are just like lions. They're seen as very primal creatures, very fearless. They wear their stripes on their chest. They wear their stripes on their body. You know, they show that they've gone through things and they've gone through a lot of stuff, right? But deep down, we're only as strong as we let ourselves be, and we've grown ourselves to be. I think that's why they chose tigers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is going back to this subject of objection, you know, where it's like, you know, China like really sees himself as a tiger, and then Estrella's like, I'm also a tiger, you know, when she's in that scene where she's hiding from all of the like corpses that are chasing her. I know she says tigers are not afraid, tigers are not afraid. And so that means that like she sees herself as a tiger, you know. And it's just interesting that these children are comparing these ultimately like abject bodies, right? Because they're no longer subjects, they're no longer objects, they're just abject. Because you're like not even like a human, I guess, in that sense. It's interesting that they compare themselves to animals, you know, because it's like you're not even like human, you're just like dehumanized, you know. So it's like you kind of turn animalistic in a sense, because like animalistic tropes are always used whenever like humans are dehumanized, essentially, you know. And then also like this whole movie is about survival, right? And so like whenever people talk about like survival, they always talk about like, you know, like animals. So I kind of saw it as a little bit of what you said, and then a little bit of you know, it's like this is what happens when bodies are dehumanized. They're just considered not even human. They're just like animals at this point.
Yeah. Well, it brings up an interesting take. I mean, it's an interesting one to analyze. I think you're right there as well, but I think there's also a lot of other stuff. Then again, you know, the only one who can tell us the accurate the term of it is Issa.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I'm sure there are. Actually, no, I was watching an interview right after I finished watching the movie, but then I fell asleep, so I didn't finish it. But there's like an hour-long like interview by Issa with Guillermo del Toro, actually, on YouTube. I can send you the link later, but
please,
it's an hour long, and it's just like talking about the movie and stuff. So that probably that's probably in that interview, Issa probably answers that question that we have.
Probably, yeah. We love our president Guillermo and the great Issa. Yep.
In Guillermo we trust.
Guillermo we trust, yes. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. We've reached the end, and as always, we have two questions here. Mariana, is there a movie that you would like to recommend the people to watch?
Yeah, so you mentioned talking about, you mentioned that you reviewed Audition with your friend.
Yeah,
your co-host, right?
We did Audition, Takashi Miike's Audition on episode 3 with Leah Burns.
Awesome. Yeah. So you did Audition. So I wanted to plug one that's very similar to that, or like has like similar tropes, I guess. And it's also on Shudder, and it is a Shudder exclusive. So I'm sorry. But if y'all want to get like a Shudder subscription, use the code SHUTIN and you get 30 free days.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's called Dogs Don't Wear Pants.
Dogs Don't Wear Pants. Wow. I might get that one soon. I might watch that one soon. I I built my list, and I was like, oh shit, they have Park Chan-wook Sympathy. What's it called? Trilogy. I was like, oh, I'll get that. I was like, oh, you got Dario Argento? I'll get that.
Mhm.
Like,
Oh my god, yeah, I saw that. I was like, what?
yeah, they've
I
got
saw that.
Argento. Yeah, it had Inverno from Dario Argento. That's amazing.
They had a
God.
lot of John Carpenter too. I was like, wow.
Oh, they had Escape from New York. Yeah. Yeah. So go and watch. What's it called? I can't believe I just forgot it. What was it again?
Dogs don't wear pants.
Dogs don't wear pants. Dogs don't wear pants, guys. But what is the film that you want to call dibs on for season 2 of the Cinematic Edition?
This is also on Shudder. I am totally just like, what's it called? Getting the Shudder subscription. And so this is also on Shudder. I'm pretty sure it could probably be available. It doesn't say Shudder exclusive, so it's probably available elsewhere as well. And it's called A Girl Walks Home at Night. And I'm pretty sure it's about vampires.
Yep. Iranian. It's an Iranian film.
Yeah, so that's the one I want to call dibs on. And also because I feel like it's about vampires, if I read the description right.
Yep.
And so this is definitely, just from the title, I'm like, this is definitely like a feminist like take. So I'm obviously so for that, as we all should be. We should all be feminists.
Yeah. That film is on my 75 Films from Asia challenge for this year.
Oh shit! So do I have to do a different one?
No, that's good. No, that's good that it's that one. Because that means I get to kill 2 birds with 1 stone during this year. Yeah. So
you're welcome.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I have that one, and I have other films from Iran, from the Middle East, because I got a bunch of stuff from different places in the Middle East. But yeah, that has been our episode on Tigers Are Not Afraid with the wonderful Mariana. Mariana, you want to let them know where they can find you?
Yeah, so find me on Twitter. I forgot what my Twitter handle is. It's
Mariana _Rivera 3, I think.
Yeah, Rivera _ Mariana 3. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah. Why is it 3?
I don't know. I made this like when I was in high school, and I used to only use it to like shit post whatever like my emotions were for the day. And then I realized, wait, I actually have to be like professional and stuff. So I just like kind of kept that handle forever and didn't really change it.
Well, it's a good one. All right. So Twitter at Rivera _ Mariana 3. And as always, you can find the network at the Nerdcore _ on Twitter, the Nerdcore on Instagram. You can find me at the Nerd Chicano on both Instagram and Twitter. And you can see all the stuff I get myself into. I do a lot of photography, but I also talk a lot about film. And when I watch films that like really do like, you know, like surprise me, I put a couple of stills and a quote from the film that I really liked. So I recently did those for the what's it called, the Wong Kar-wai films that I was watching. But yeah, go and do that. But most importantly, go and check out the Patreon. You get to listen to this episode early in advance, but you also get a bunch of other cool stuff. I believe we are working on having a watch party with our patrons on Netflix. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and watch a movie soon and with our patrons. So if you want to get in on that, you just have to pledge at least $1 a month, and it gets you in there for that. Really cool Google Chrome extension that they put in that we could watch the movies together. So I want to do that for our patrons. So without further ado, it's been a wonderful time here, and I want to thank everybody who supports us on the Patreon, and I want to thank our wonderful guests for coming on. I will see you guys next week. I'm crossing my fingers. He's usually really busy, but next week should be Through a Glass Darkly with the wonderful Aidan Burns. And we'll talk about an incredible, legendary picture from Ingmar Bergman, famous Swedish director. But if that's not the case, then we'll see what else we get into. But I'm glad that we finally did this one. I'm really excited to have done this one with Mariana, and I can't wait for you to come back.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
See you guys. As always, stay safe. Watch movies. Just stay inside. Practice that motherfucking social distancing, okay, guys? Motherfucking social distancing. We'll see you guys later.